Over to this story. The legal blood alcohol level in South Africa is 0.05 grams and the legal breath alcohol limit is less than 0.24 milligrams. Drunk drivers are not uncommon on the streets of South Africa, causing serious injuries and deaths. So can breathalyser tests do enough to get drunk drivers off the roads? For more on this conversation, I am now joined by the CEO of Global Business Solutions, John Botha. Thank you so much for your time. John, we do appreciate it. Let's just speak about the concerns around breathalyzers. I was telling my colleague earlier on that just the other day on my way home from this show, I was stopped and I was asked to blow into the breathalyzer, and I started panicking, not because I had been drinking, but because we've heard stories about breathalyzers not giving an accurate reading. Is that something that is, to your knowledge, that is of concern?
Good evening, Heidi, to you and your viewers. Well, there was a recent Labour Court decision, the Samancor Chrome matter, in which an employee failed a breathalyzer on 2 occasions. So this employee arrived at work, was required to use the breathalyzer, was found to test positive. They retested this employee on a different breathalyzer, and the employee again tested positive and was dismissed. Heidi, what's quite interesting in this matter is this employee then went to his medical practitioner who did a blood analysis, and the laboratory tests came back that they were negative. And what's interesting is the laboratory tests don't pick up a reading below 0.01 grams per 100 ml. So what you have in this particular matter is, of course, and this is about labor law, not about criminal law, not about driving on the roads, but from a labor law point of view, of course, you can't allow people who are potentially under the influence of intoxicating drugs or alcohol in. And this whole issue revolved around the difference between the blood laboratory result and the breathalyzer, Heidi. And in the leading of evidence, the employee called the medical doctor who testified that bloods are more accurate than the breathalyzers, which then really links back to what you articulated, your concern around how accurate are breathalyzers. And they definitely have been known, if they're not calibrated regularly and if there are no control tests, they definitely, Heidi, can shift over time, and if they are not handled correctly.
So what's the solution here, though? Because on the one hand, the breathalyzer might not be accurate, so it might pick up, I mean, my colleague and I were speaking about the fact that there was an issue around the breathalyzer picking up levels of alcohol when people were having hot cross buns or some sort of medication or that sort of thing. So on the one hand, there's an issue around it picking up a wrong reading, but on the other hand, there's also concern of it not being able to really ascertain and assess how drunk somebody actually is.
Well, that's a very good point that you raise. You know, at the workplace, if we talk about occupational health and safety, it's actually a criminal offense if organizations allow people who appear to be under the influence or who are tested and have a reading onto their premises. So it's a big problem at the workplace. And that is specifically why there's this distinction between the criminal burden of proof, which is beyond reasonable doubt, and at a workplace in labor law, balance of probabilities. Now, a breathalyzer on its own, Heidi, at the workplace would not probably on its own be sufficient to prove balance of probabilities. What one would need as an employer is you'd have to have an observation checklist. So the person's eyes would be bloodshot, their breath would smell of alcohol, or they would conduct themselves in a manner unbecoming. So if we look at the evidence holistically, a breathalyzer, along with those other features that people, you know, manifest when they have been partaking in alcohol, holistically that would be sufficient to prove that someone was potentially maybe not even under the influence, but you're not allowed to let them onto the premises. The other issue, Heidi, to remember as well from a labor law point of view in this particular Samancor case, once this employee had blown into the breathalyzer, he went to his medical practitioner, as I said. Now, in the intervening period of time, we see that alcohol can be metabolized at a rate of 0.16% per hour. So it's very possible that from the breathalyser test, the time between then and the person visiting their medical practitioner, the blood alcohol levels could have dropped significantly. But I think the big issue here is that in the evidence that was led by the doctor acknowledged that a blood analysis will not pick up alcohol below 0.01 grams per 100 ml, which is a concern because the breathalyser, as you indicated, is a lot more sensitive. You know, you may have a hot cross bun potentially, and for whatever reason, it picks that reading up. But that on its own would probably not be sufficient. You'd have to couple that in terms of the workplace with an observation checklist, as I said, red eyes, breath smelling of alcohol, aggressiveness, or whatever the case may be.
It's very interesting to hear how, you know, the breathalyzer can either pick up the wrong reading or not be able to pick up the accurate reading of someone's intoxication. Thank you so much for your insights. We do appreciate it. That was the CEO of Global Business Solutions, John Botha.